We're here at the Social Media Listening Center at Clemson University, where they've been tracking conversations around the election over the past 30 days. But now we're getting an even closer look at the conversations that were taking place as the votes were being cast.
This is a real-time feed of some of the conversation that's been generated about elections.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more, all painting a picture of the midterms.
There's a lot of kind of disenchantment associated with that. And we're definitely seeing that reflected in social media.
The Social Media Listening Center at Clemson University is analyzing key phrases on social media platforms to determine how people responded to Election Day 2022.
Obviously, conversations around long waits. There were some concerns and issues, obviously, with mentions of voter intimidation. There were some, obviously, concerns about voter fraud and things along those lines.
Boatwright says people not only took to social media to talk about the voting process, but of course to talk about the candidates.
So obviously over the course of election day and into the evening when results start to come in, conversations start to really ramp up around some of those races that are really important in terms of control of the Senate. Obviously, the senatorial race in Georgia was generating a ton of conversation as the evening went on.
The Social Media Listening Center gives us a closer look at the timing of social media posts and the sentiment around certain topics or conversations. Boatwright says the attitude this year was primarily pessimistic.
We also saw a lot of negative sentiment around the election on social media, and we, started to see that was really kind of a reflection of how people are feeling about the political process in general right now.
Ultimately, Boatwright says that what sticks out the most from their data is the people who are driving the conversations on social media.
Just kind of the reactions and the responses to those called elections.
Turns out you may have more power behind the keyboard than you think.
I think it's interesting to see that it's not just, on social media. It's not just, the candidates who are driving the conversation. It's not just, outlets who are reporting on it, but, it's average everyday users really who have an influence in the way that people make sense of the conversations around elections, important issues, things of that nature. It's the average users on social media who are driving those conversations.
And with several races across the country still undecided, the Social Media Listening Center says they will continue to monitor the conversations around those candidates as we head toward potential runoffs. In Clemson, Sydney Shadrix, WIFF News 4.